Good morning. Good morning. First and foremost, go to the website. I literally just dropped a Substack after a 2 hour interview, I believe this past Tuesday, in relation to how citizens can integrate into judicial reform because we're going to need to push in a lot of places. And why did we get here? We got here because we're mixing too much good with too much with bad. That's it. We're mixing the good with the bad, and it is creating the utmost confusion. So let's get straight to it. There are two USC codes that you always need to consider with whatever is happening today in relation to ICE immigration and some of the things that are going on. It's 8 USC code 1324 and 8 USC code 1325. 1325 is the one that everybody is harping on, which is if you're in this country illegally, this means you do not have papers, you are here wrong, then yes, you are in the wrong and something needs to be done to correct the wrong because we can't mix the good with the bad. This means we cannot mix your personal feelings of hardworking people with the law. But 1324 is the one they keep leaving out. If you knowingly hired or had anyone work for you that knowingly hired someone who is wrong, you are also wrong. But that group we're not hearing about. We're not hearing that lawsuit after lawsuit and that you can be given up to 5 years in prison. You can look this up. I did. I went to LII, Legal Information Institute, and pulled up 8 USC Code 1324 just to read the amendments. Both of these are federal offenses. Do you understand? So when an individual comes out the news and says, you have taken all of my workers away, you, sir, you, ma'am, you, company, have just admitted to a felony. That's a fact. But we keep finding places. Understand that through our history, companies have found a way to mix the good with the bad. I.e., a company now can knowingly do something harmful, but under this structure of the company's name, even though person, man, bleeds, can be pinched, can feel pain, is making the decisions, the company is held liable, not the person. We've literally had this problem. So that person can still be looked at as good while doing bad. We keep mixing the good with the bad. We now, when I was growing up, we knew if you wore a mask to commit a crime, you were a bad person. How did we mix the good with the bad today? Because we found out as legal citizens that legal citizens were being infringed upon by people who wear masks. The good guys and the bad guys cannot look the same. That's the bottom line. Now we got this word they throw out. Well, we don't want you to be doxing their addresses. Let me tell you something about the good people. The good people cannot hide. You cannot hide because we thought that the bad guys were in the shadows. That's the way it's been. And when you started mixing the good with the bad, citizens couldn't tell the difference and you created confusion. You systematically created confusion, and that's a problem. We cannot keep allowing the systemic creation of problems. You see now judges making law precedence decisions saying, hey, this choice is wrong. Then the appellate court comes back and says, I'm not going to say that you were wrong. I'm just going to halt it until someone comes up with a better reason. But I'm not going to say that you were wrong. Well, why did we come here? We allowed the judicial system to have something they call per curiam affirmative. It's a way of saying, I agree with whatever was said, but I don't have to say why. Well, why are we paying you if we are not wanting to know what's going on? We've allowed so much to happen as citizens that me pushing for legislative authority and direct democracy for citizens needs to correct this problem because it is wrong at its core. And people are trying to mix still too much right with too much wrong. And you cannot mix them. You have to have a stance on that. You have to decide today to say that I want to maintain the rule of law. If you broke the law, you need to be corrected. But if you didn't break the law, then the law needs to also be corrected. And that's a very unconfusing argument. This means, hey, if you go out there and you grab a lawful citizen, we need to know that that person is a lawful citizen. Well, we can't know that there's a lawful citizen and there is a procedure for proving that that citizen is lawful if the rules are being broken. Time constraint cannot be the reason that we are okay breaking the rules. Well, we need to move as fast as we can. Mistakes happen when you move fast in building plates, not in dealing with people, with flesh and blood. We need to have empathy for one another. There cannot be this type of thing. So when you go off and you look at me and you go and you read what I'm trying to implement, it's to give citizens the ability to actually use the empathetic side of themselves to understand that, hey, things need to slow down when it comes to certain areas. If you get if you go pick up a person and that person cannot prove that they are here legally, then they need to be deported because you have not proven that you're here legally. It doesn't matter if you're working here, because there's another term that's not being used enough: the work visa. Did you know I haven't taken my time to look up the work visa and who typically pays for that? The citizen can pay for a work visa, but the companies footed the bill for the work visa. Why are these companies not getting work visas anymore? Why would they want to cut costs to do this? That ain't even the question. The point is you could have got work visas and you could have protected those individuals who are here, because we had and have a system in place for that. We just didn't hold people accountable. And if we're gonna keep electing individuals who now cannot be held accountable, hear me, they cannot be held accountable, and you have a person running for governor right now, and I run into so many hiccups. When I go get a room in the library, it costs me, if I'm a member of that library for Orange County, it costs me $10. That's all I have to pay. But if I want to get like have 50 people come and hear me at a center, at a community center, I gotta get $1 million renter's insurance policy. Look, this is difficult. There's a lot of ways we're trying to get a lot of information out to you, and people are doing their best to explain it. Right now, sometimes, if based on your feed, you're probably seeing, protest after protest, word protest, but it's being thrown out by certain areas. It's like, no, they're rioting. Riots and protests are very different. And I encourage you personally to go look up the definition, because in the same sentence, on the entertainment side of our society, people are still posting good videos out in LA. You don't see things burning down out in LA. They're still going out and getting coffee. They're still shooting their skits on the sides of the road. And so it must not all be burning down if our entertainers are still able to find time to do these things for the entertainment community. This means that maybe, just maybe, you can give thought to the perspective that, hey, why would we push so much when the state governor is saying we don't need to go to this level yet? Because there is a conversation of escalation of force. Right now, we're supposed to be having today, there's a parade. And then we had in Florida a sheriff all but say all the ways that if you protest, you're going to be hurt. And guys, we mixed again the good with the bad. We look at our sheriffs, we look at our police, and we say those are supposed to be the good guys. But then we know if you don't, there is a term called the continuum of force. It's how we escalate force. I've been in the military for 22 years. So it's how we escalate force. Let me tell you, you cannot create a atmosphere of you can just hurt people because you don't like what they say. You cannot do that. You cannot put masks on the good guys and the bad guys all have masks and then try to say, and then ask the citizens to differentiate. We should assume, and I'm telling you, that everybody masked up is wrong. Take the mask off. Do the right thing. Do not keep allowing society to mix the good with the bad. It doesn't make you a bad person. If you're having an internal conflict, to read the law as written and interpret it to say, if you are here and you do not have the proper paperwork, you are illegal. It does not matter if you are here in abundance and doing a great thing. You're doing a great thing without doing it the proper way. Something does need to be done in order to maintain good order and discipline by law, because the understanding and the conversation always needs to be understood. Without law, we will have anarchy. If we don't have rules, then that means there's nothing to break. And we do have rules, and we know for a fact that these rules don't apply the same way to everyone. And that's why I'm pushing for direct democracy, so we can fix that problem, because we should have been seeing 8 USC Code 1324 be brought up alongside 8 USC Code 1325 consistently. We should have been seeing those individuals brought to the courts to atone for their role in creating a root cause problem, which is why create a pipeline to prosperity the wrong way? Why create it? You needed to do it the right way. Then you needed to bring up, if it was costing too much, we could have maybe brought up the idea of bringing down the cost of work visas. There were a ton of things that we could do, but without progressive thinking in those seats and without citizens able to back those progressive thoughts. That's why direct democracy is important to me, because I am running for governor to be supported by the people who put me there. And I don't just mean by way of, yes, I want to vote for you, and then I just can't do anything else to assist you but pick up the phone and call somebody who says he's got so many phone calls he can't answer. And even if he does answer, there is nothing that holds or weights them to change their vote, which I'm 100% okay with, because we are, to a certain extent, a democratic republic society represented by these people, but they get their own vote. They get to vote how they intellectually or personally feel about something that comes in front of them, which is fine. But if it is wrong, if I don't agree with something, you will find me saying that, hey, I do not agree with legalizing marijuana, but 51% of the state may see it differently. And if they see it differently, we're going to come up with a plan to do it healthily and safely. And I'm going to keep on saying, I think it was a terrible idea. But we're going to figure out the best way to do it safely, because I don't believe in mixing the good with the bad. I just don't. So at the core, I'm not asking you to be perfect, but I am asking you to keep walking in a perfect line. Try to get as close to it as possible, because we're at a place where it's necessary to recognize that citizens cannot and should always speak up against, until I get in office, that, hey, we cannot mix the good with the bad. Our good people need to show their faces. And then we just need to do what we do best, which is always look out for each other. And even if we don't have a history of looking out for each other in a way that's meaningful to you, because you may say that, it may become a racial argument. Police was never even meant to look after black. That's okay, I understand. But I'm progressively thinking about how we're going to get there. How are we going to ensure that we don't mix the good with the bad? How can we actively make a change to change those parts that have historically been understood? How can we do better? And that's important to me, because even though, if you are coming from any racial perspective, there have been amendments and provisions and legislation and statutes made to mitigate those issues. And even if we see some of that stuff being rolled back, we can still do something to push it forward. We just need to hold our elected officials accountable in a more meaningful manner. And that is why I'm pushing for direct democracy. I know this has been a long video, and I'm okay with that. Please give it some thought on understanding and create a perspective for yourself that we cannot keep mixing the good with the bad. You guys have a great day.